Hey y'all, welcome to Mama Made Me Do It, where Southern folks tell funny stories about things their Southern mamas made them do. I'm Julia Fowler, and I'm here today with my friend William Lucas Walker. He's from Clinton, South Carolina.
But you got to call me Bill.
Bill,
Nobody
okay,
calls me William.
Nobody calls him William. Maybe, is your birth certificate?
I had to change it for when I joined the Writers Guild.
Oh, okay.
Because there was already a Bill and a Billy and a William and a Will.
Got it. Well, we're going to call him Bill, okay? So Bill is a writer, now that you've learned that. He's a writer. He's best known for his work on classic sitcoms like Roseanne and Will and Grace and Frasier. In fact, Bill won a Best Comedy Series Emmy for his work on Frasier, and he even got to take his mama to the Emmys.
Look how beautiful she
I
looks.
know, that must have been fun.
Oh, buddy, she was having a hoot.
Oh, yeah.
I told her we were going to go in my dirty old car, and I was sorry I hadn't washed it, and she was not happy. And then the doorbell rings, and this Russian chauffeur has pulled up in a stretch limo that Paramount sent. She was in heaven.
She loved it. So that's where you are. You're in the back of the stretch limo, and she's all gussied up. Where'd she get her outfit? Do you remember?
Probably Tapestry.
Tapestry. Yes,
yeah.
Our connection. We'll tell you all about that in a second. Well, you know, I have to brag on you for another moment. I have to brag on my friend Bill because he's so talented. He also co-created the Chris Isaak Show for Showtime, and he has a very popular blog on Huffington Post called Spilled Milk, and he's currently developing that blog into a television show set in the South.
Set in my hometown.
In your hometown.
With a different name.
Well, anyway, it's nice to have you. Welcome. And I love having a fellow South Carolinian here with me today.
Well, you know, you're the first. I've been out here since the 90s, and you're the first South Carolina person I've met.
That's crazy.
So tell them how we met.
Well, I know. We do have a funny story about how we met. So we actually are newer friends. We just known each other about a year. Yes. Yeah. I had a book that came out last year, last March, called Talk Southern to Me. And I had a book signing at a real cute shop in Clinton, South Carolina called Tapestry. It's a great boutique. And as I'm doing my book signings, the lady that owns Tapestry, Leslie Ann
Cooper Jackson.
Leslie Ann Cooper Jackson. You know, you got to have lots of names in the South.
Yes.
But Leslie Ann said to me, you've got to meet my friend Bill, you know, because you're in Los Angeles and he's in Los Angeles and you Southerners got to stick together. So I just, you know, reached right on out to Bill and said, we have to go to lunch. Apparently we need to be friends, and we became fast friends, and I am just so lucky.
Oh, it's been great. It's been great.
Yeah.
She's my y'all girl. She's the only person I can say y'all to.
Yes, and he's the only person I know that understands where I'm from, Gaffney. People always like, where is Gaffney?
Gaffney.
But Bill knows. See, there you are. You're in my hometown right there with the peach oil.
Okay, whenever we fly back to South Carolina, we land in Charlotte, and we pass the Peach Butt. That's what this is called to everybody. And we wake up the kids to go, we're coming to the Peach Butt, we're coming to the Peach Butt. But we'd never seen it. So last April, my son and I actually stopped and we took pictures with the Peach Butt.
It is a thing of beauty.
Is
it not? Yes. It's really, what it is it's a water tower. As we were kind of having a little bit of war with Georgia over who was really the biggest peach producer.
Okay, can we get into that for a minute?
Yes.
Georgia is officially called the peach state, but it's not really the peach state.
That's exactly right, because South Carolina produces more peaches than Georgia.
South Carolina is the genuine peach state. They just got the title, and it's not okay. So we've tried to rectify that with the water tower.
This is the Southerners' way of saying we are the mighty peaches.
We are the peaches.
Well, anyway, we are here today to talk about your mama. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your Southern mama?
Okay, well, my mama is a hoot. She is the most accomplished woman I've ever met. She, before she married my dad, she started working with the state newspaper in Columbia, South Carolina, which is the biggest newspaper in South Carolina.
Right.
In high school. And then she worked there through college, and that's where she got a job. She actually interviewed President Ike Eisenhower at the day after he was inaugurated.
Wow.
And then she married my dad and moved to this little tiny town of Clinton with 9,000 people to be a wife and mother, as they called it back then.
Got it.
I once said, Mom, didn't you miss it? You know, because this is when women were starting to have careers and things. And I was like, you know, you could have done that. She goes, no, this is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
But she could have been anything. And as a matter of fact, the thing that's really cool about her was after my brother and I went off to college, she had taken a watercolor class in college, just one. And our town had a little arts festival.
Got
and
it.
they said, everybody, if you've got anything, crayon pictures, anything, please enter them in the arts festival because we don't have much. So she pulled out this 20-year-old painting and put it in the arts festival, and she won first prize.
Oh, wow.
And everybody said, which wasn't hard to do, but but it was clearly a great painting. And they were like, Betty, I didn't know you painted. And she goes, well, I don't. They said, you need to start painting again. And because we were leaving the nest, she started taking watercolor classes. And over the next 30 years, she just got better and better and better. And when she was 70 years old, she was invited to New York and inducted into the American Watercolor Society. They're like the best watercolors in America.
Well, that's fancy.
So she's great.
I love it. Well, she's absolutely beautiful.
She
beautiful
is.
and talented.
And she raised 4 sons, which I don't understand how
Yes,
she survived
that
that.
actually was her hardest job.
That was
and her
her
biggest
hardest.
talent,
It
let me
was.
tell you.
It was.
I love her little scarf.
Oh man, she's the
know.
most beautiful mama. We all think our mom is the most beautiful,
Yes,
but my
yes.
mama really was.
Well, Southern
beautiful.
mamas are beautiful.
They are.
Yes, she knows how to accessorize.
Look
Look
at
at that.
that.
Speaking of accessorizing,
She modeled for some department store. That was a hoot.
as my mom would say, she is well put together.
My daughter would say, that's a little extra.
That's extra. No, honey. No, you know that Southern women, why do when you
No.
can overdo,
Yes.
right? That's our philosophy.
Well, she has great taste. She was one of those people that whatever she did, she just excelled at. And if she didn't know what it was, she studied it and learned how to do it, like the painting.
And you've always
So
told me that your mama's really funny.
Oh, she is. We call her Betty Woman.
Betty woman.
Betty Woman. My brothers and I call her Betty Woman. So when she calls home for supper, it'd be Jimmy, Bill, Joey, Janie.
You can barely
and this is
understand.
really what she sounds like. People think I'm making it up, and then they made it like, oh my gosh, she really sounds like that.
She really
does.
sounds like that.
2 days ago, I was on the phone with my mom, and she was like, and this is typical of the thing. She'll go, well, Bill, I'm back in the bedroom, and the preacher showed up. And the preacher's up front talking with Daddy, and I'm still in my bedclothes. And I'm like, well, Mom, you don't have to go up there. Well, I do. I need to speak to him, but I don't want the preacher to see me in my lingerie.
And your lingerie.
And I burst
yes.
out laughing. I'm like, Mom, are you really in lingerie? Well, no, it's pajamas, but it's my lingerie.
Yes,
So,
I love it.
I tell you, actually, my mom got me one of my sitcom jobs.
She did?
Because,
Tell me.
yes, I was going for my interview on Will and Grace.
Yes.
And about a couple of weeks before, and you always, when you go on an interview, you sort of need an icebreaker.
Right.
You know, just something funny. And I never like to plan them. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what funny happened in the last week or two? So anyway, my mom and I both love New York, and I had lived in New York for 10 years.
Got
and
it.
so I would go back, when I moved to Los Angeles, I would go back and I would meet my mom. She'd fly up and we'd go to the theater and do all that kind of stuff together. So one day, it was this beautiful day, and when John Lennon died, he had always lived across the street from Central Park, and he and Yoko Ono had gone, they used to go for walks in the park right across from the Dakota where they lived. And after he died, she had it turned into a garden called Strawberry Fields after one of the Beatles songs. It's
Right.
maybe an acre. Beautiful, like azaleas and flowers and walkways, very peaceful and lovely place. And right in the middle, when you walk off Central Park West, there's this big mosaic. And it just says, Imagine, his great song. So my mom goes, well, what's everybody doing up there? And I looked up, and up where the mosaic was, there was like a larger than usual crowd gathered. I said, well, let's go up. I want you to see this. So we went up, and it turned out the night before, Paul McCartney's wife, Linda McCartney, had passed away. And, when someone famous passes away, people like to gather, and that seemed to be the natural place. So we walked up there, and there were all these people standing around, and there were flowers around it. Everybody was very quiet and reverent. And there were pictures of her. People had put pictures of her up. And of course, my mom didn't know any of this. So we were just going up there, and everybody's real quiet, reverent. The word Imagine, it was just kind of perfect. My mom looks up and goes, who's Imogene?
Who is Imogene?
Who's that woman,
Who's
Imogene? I'm like, Mom.
I hate she passed.
I know. And I'm like,
Yes.
Mama, oh God. And everybody was like shaking out of their reverence and like, who are you?
Who are you?
know.
I love it.
But
Who's
when
Imogene?
my producers on Will, they said that job got you the story.
That story got you the
story
job.
got me the
I
job.
got
Yeah.
it. I got
they
it.
said, yeah.
Bless,
So
bless.
thanks,
Well,
Mom.
you had told me before that your mama also made you become an Eagle Scout.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. And I get it now, but at the time, left to my own devices, I would have liked staying inside and watching Divorce Court and reruns of I Love Lucy.
Yes, right.
Which turned out to be great training for my TV career.
writing,
See, now I got
Divorce
to
Court, I
see
would think.
all that TV that I was watching. That was training, which it was. That's where I fell in love with sitcoms. So when my brother joined the Boy Scouts, she wanted me to join the Boy Scouts, and that was fine. You know, get me out of the house on Saturday morning. It was a really big deal. And one of my first court of honors that I went to when I was brand new, this guy named Monty Crisp was getting his Eagle Award, and it was at his church, and like everybody was there, and it was like amazing. And it was like, oh my God, I want to do that.
Right.
So I said, I think I want to become an Eagle Scout. Well, she seized on that.
Yes.
Seized on it.
Yeah.
You're going to be an Eagle. I'm like, well, I just said I like the ceremony.
Yeah, I thought maybe I'd attend one meeting.
No, you'll be a great Eagle Scout.
Is this your mama pinning merit badges
This is
on
my
you?
mom pinning my Eagle Scout award on me.
So you did become the Eagle Scout.
I became the youngest Eagle Scout ever in my town.
Oh my Lord, your mama
Because of
has
my
been-
mama made me do it.
I was about to say, she
did.
must have been proud as punch.
Well, she found out that nobody had ever gotten their Eagle Scout award when they were 13. And my 14th birthday was approaching, and we got to get this before, because they're competitive.
I was
these
about to say,
mamas.
isn't
They're
that just
competitive.
like a Southern mama? It's not enough that you become an Eagle Scout.
But
that
you have to
also
be
you have to be the youngest one ever.
Ever. I still tell people that I got it at 13. They're like, nobody does that. Well, there
Yes.
are reasons you don't do
Yes.
that.
So tell me some stories about some funny things your mama made you do growing up.
She's a real stickler for setting the table. Right.
Most Southern women are.
I mean, it has to be right. Everything has to match. And you always mess something up.
Yes,
It's
yes.
always like, you forgot the salad forks. We can't eat salad without a salad. I'm like, Mom, it's a fork. I'm not eating until we have a salad fork. So every now and then she'd really put on the, really go high on the hog. Like with my grandmother, her mother-in-law, and her mother, any of them were coming. So there was this one visit. And when my mom was going to put it on like that, she'd set the table 2 days in advance.
Of course she would.
I mean, everything. So the day of, she was dusting the plates.
Well, it takes a long time to get all those settings right.
And she
Can
wa-
you still remember how everything
Oh,
goes?
yeah, oh, yeah. So it was like, I said, well, okay. And she said, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, what? She goes, left or right? Salad fork, dinner fork.
Yes.
Up above salad plate, dinner plate. Dinner knife,
Yes.
pointing in, the cutting side in, iced teaspoon, because there had to be an iced teaspoon.
Yeah, you gotta have sweet teaspoon.
And then a teaspoon. I'm like, why is there a teaspoon? Just don't ask questions. The iced teaspoon
Do as I
is for
say.
the. And then if you have a dessert, the dessert,
Right across the
and
top.
when we were having fancy company, it was the Strasbourg sterling silver,
Oh yes.
her wedding gift. So that's when
Yes,
that came.
that was her wedding. Silver.
That was her
Yes,
wedding
yes.
silver.
And did
then
she have a china powder?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
so and then we would pull out the fancy china powder. My mom was a great cook. She
Got it.
always tried new recipes, and she had come up with this recipe that she was going to try for the grandmothers,
Got
and
it.
particularly her mother-in-law. Who loved her. You always want to impress your mother-in-law.
Right.
So she said, I found this recipe called Chicken Elizabeth. And we're going to have that for Mother's Day. And I'm like, oh, good. What is it? Well, the big thing about Chicken Elizabeth was, normally you take a chicken, you cut up the pieces. Chicken Elizabeth called for all chicken breasts.
Oh, okay. Got
That was expensive, and that was special. So I think she had like 10 chicken breasts, and they had to bake in the oven, but there was a sauce on top of them with like celery and onions. So you'd make the chicken and then put the sauce over it, and then you put it in the oven to bake.
Got it.
So my grandmother's are there, everybody's sitting around. My mom comes in with the Chicken Elizabeth on her silver platter, which
Yes.
she'd never done.
Presentation.
That was, and we were all kind of like, I mean, it was pretty spectacular. And she sits it down in front of my dad, who's serving, and his mother, who's to the right. So we're all sitting there, and it was delicious. It was really
And it's
good.
Mother's Day, right?
It's Mother's Day. So my mother's mother was there too, and my great aunt was there, and all the boys. So we're sitting there, and we're talking, and all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, and I looked down, and my grandmother had gotten something caught in her throat or something. And it's like, okay, in the South, you ignore those
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
You
she'll be
pretend like
fine.
it's not. And then all of a sudden, she went, and she vomited,
Oh no.
projectile vomited onto the platter of Chicken Elizabeth.
Oh no, after your mama had worked her fingers to the bone.
And my mother turned to stone. She just sitting there like this. And we were all just kind of frozen. And it was terrible because my grandmother was, and sometimes when somebody throws up and you get a whiff of it and you think you're going to throw
Yes.
So I had to flee the table, And and then they had a help and she was fine, but my mother was still sort of like granite.
Oh,
And I had to
no.
leave and my dad came back to where I was. He goes, "I cannot believe you left your grandmother in distress. A Southern gentleman stays at the table and helps a lady in distress." I said, "Daddy, I was afraid I was going to throw up too."
Oh, my
Well,
God.
I will not hear of it. So anyway, to this day, whenever my mother will say, "Well, what would y'all like for dinner?" One of us boys will go, "How about Chicken Elizabeth?" You do not say, and she will just turn around and walk out of the room. It's never been served again.
Yes, don't even
never
mention
attempted again.
Chicken Elizabeth.
Cannot be mentioned. But I will say the irony is that I've realized that even though my kids have two dads, I am
Channeling the Southern
I'm
mama.
a Southern mama.
You are your
I
mama.
have become a Southern mama.
You have a beautiful family. Tell me about
you.
your family.
There's my family. That's my husband Kelly on the right, my son James, our daughter Elizabeth, and me.
Oh,
And that's
I love it.
that's actually the church. Kelly and I met at church.
Oh, right.
And we met at that church. Now I gotta touch on that for a minute because my mother likes for things to follow the plan.
Yeah.
She likes to know what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure she would have loved for me to meet my spouse at church, but this maybe was not what she,
Was
what she
looking right,
imagined.
right.
And but he is now her favorite son. He's the fifth son in our family, and they love him. But she was like, they'd never heard of gay parents, and we were among the first. So that was like, she was not on board with that.
Of
She
course.
thought this was going to not be good until the day my daughter was born. And we called her from the hospital, and we said, "Mom, she's here. You have a new granddaughter." And she was like, "Oh my gosh." She said, "What's her name?" I said, "Elizabeth Cody." We named her after my mom.
Smart.
It was the smartest thing we ever did. "I have a namesake?" I'm like, "Yeah, nobody's ever named a child after me." And they are thick as they look
I
at.
love it. And now that's her baby girl.
She loves that girl.
I know.
And-
Look.
And my daughter's a lot like my mother.
Yes, yes. And your daughter
It-
just graduated high school,
She
right?
just graduated from a Catholic girls' school.
Good
Yes.
for her.
And she's
Good for
going
her.
off to college to become a nurse.
Oh, how wonderful. So tell me something else that your mama made you do.
When I was a kid, my mom always made our cakes, and she would my favorites were coconut or caramel.
Yeah, Southern
Those-
women can make cakes.
Then I went to Warren Finney's birthday party, never forget it. And his mother had bought him a bakery cake. Now, we didn't even have a bakery in town. I didn't even know what a bakery cake was. But she brings out this most beautiful thing I'd ever seen with like, "Happy birthday, Warren," written in script. And there were like flowers and piping and all. And I want one of those.
Right.
So I went home and I said, "Mama, I want one of I want a bakery cake."
Like, what's his name? Warren?
Warren Finney.
Like, I want a cake like Warren Finney's.
I want a cake like Warren Finney. She just rose up and gave me that look. And she said, "I make your cakes from scratch with love." And that is the kind of cake you get because I put my whole heart into those cakes.
Yes.
And I was like, felt terrible. Well, as a result, I have never bought a bakery cake for my kids.
Wow.
I make a signature cake for each. This is Elizabeth's cake.
Oh, wow.
And
It's
I made-
beautiful. Well done, Bill.
Well, I can't get those squirt things right. But
the flowers.
they always have Gerber daisies because a friend brought her Gerber daisies the day she was born in the hospital. So that's
her signature.
That's sort
She
of
has
her
to have-
flower. Yeah.
I love it. I love that you. Oh,
And
that's
then this
a
is
beautiful
Kelly's
cake.
cake. Kelly loves green, so he gets.
Man after my own heart. My favorite color.
I know he loved this, but he gets a 4-layer, really dark chocolate cake on the inside,
Yum.
and then this is James's. I used to make James with a regular like yellow cake with chocolate icing and a little James the Train
Oh,
on
cute.
top.
Right,
you
right.
know? I was gone one year. Kelly goes, "What kind of cake do you want?" And James is like so creative in his mind's just like a 3-ring circus sometimes. And he's like, "I want a coconut cake. No, I want a chocolate cake. No, I want a blueberry cake. I want sprinkles on it." So now Kelly makes great pies. He's the best pies I've ever eaten. But I was gone. So this is what we make for James now. We give him cupcakes that are all those
So,
different
because
flavors.
he can't make up his mind.
The year that I was gone, and Kelly sent me a picture of the year that James
he
wanted
tried
it.
to make the cake.
This is Kelly's cake.
Oh, bless. Now that's pitiful.
But James loved it. He said, Daddy, it was great. It had everything on it. See the blueberries and then the white with sprinkles.
Yeah.
But he was 5, and that was like a 5-year-old's dream cake.
Yes, yes.
So now James's signature cake is basically this, but I've perfected it so it looks kind of like Martha Stewart. There's 4 sections and each one is neat. Kind of an ingenious idea on his part because it's like 4 cakes. You just slice the slice.
So it's important that you instill those kinds of things in your kids, and that we keep those kind of Southern traditions going forward.
Well,
Otherwise,
she said to me,
we'll lose the culture.
And when they're making you do all this stuff and you're hating it, some mamas can, when there's nobody else around, they'll just cut to the chase with you. They don't use the fancy talk.
Yes.
And finally, I was complaining about something to my mother. I was like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? She said, my job is not to be fun and it's not to make everything easy for you. She said, my job is to send you out into the world prepared so you don't fall apart when you get out there.
That's right. That's right.
And it's true. And I've told my kids that. I said, my job isn't to let you play video games all night. I said, my job is to prepare you for the world so that when I'm not around, Papa's not around, you can handle it.
That's exactly
And that's
right.
the great gift of a Southern mama.
It is the great gift of a Southern mama. Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to share a story.
No, I'd love to.
So this is from one of the fans from the Southern Women Channel. This is from Gary Balzer from Tellico Plains, Tennessee. Hey, Gary, how you doing? This is a true story. As a young boy, my grandma was always patting me on the butt and saying, bless your little heart. So on my first day in the first grade, the teacher had us say the Pledge of Allegiance. And she said to put your hand over your heart. Well, of course, I put my hand over my butt. And the teacher said, Gary, honey, your hand is to go over your heart. And I said, it is. And the teacher said, no, your heart is where your chest is. And my reply was, no, my grandmama always pats me on the butt and says, bless your little heart. So I recall having a note sent home to my mama to instruct me on my body parts. Isn't that a great little story? And I can so see that happening.
And if your grandmama said it, it's true.
Oh, honey, you listen to your
She takes
granny.
precedent over your teacher.
She does,
Always.
always. Well, thank you so much for joining me today,
Thank
Bill.
you.
This was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you sharing your stories
I love
with
talking about
me.
my mom.
Y'all can learn more about Bill's writing by searching William Lucas Walker on imdb.com. And if you're interested in reading his humor blog, you can just Google the Huffington Post, William Lucas Walker, and it will come right up.
Yeah.
And if you want to follow him on Instagram, you can find him at
dadhemian.rhapsody.
Please send me your Mama Made Me Do It stories. You can contact me through our website, Southern Women Channel.
Bye,
Bye,
Mama.
y'all.
Bye, Mama.
Yeah, bye, Mama.
Bye, Mama.
Bye, Bill's Mama.
Love you, Mama.